Hi, hello, and welcome back to another one of my videos. My name is Osas, and today we're going to be talking about a weapon that was previously not so good, but now it's like really overpowered. And that weapon is the Dreadlord sword. This item, I mean, it's just a drop from dungeons. There's tons of them on AH, and they don't go for very much. But the maxed ones, like this 5-star epic one, go for like 3/5 of a million. So they still don't go for very much compared to other things like Frozen Scythe and Bonzo staff. But this sword is so much better than any of those swords. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you why the Dreadlord sword is actually really OP. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So, the Floor 4 updates for dungeons is now rolling, and with it came tons of fixes and changes for magic damage. And most of the changes were nerfs, like magic scaling for intelligence just died everywhere. And the mage got huge nerf. And I mean, I think it's a good thing because the mage was way too overpowered and everyone was being mages. There's too many mages. But now magic damage is much weaker and less people are mages, so yeah, happy with that. So if you will notice the two changes for the main part of magic damage, the first one is talking about how the Dreadlord sword, yes, the item for today's video, now has a very short cooldown, so you can fire it really fast. And the one right below that talks about how the Soul Stealer bow and the Dreadlord sword now deal AoE damage. So that means they can affect an entire area and do lots of damage to big groups of enemies. Another massive change to mana and magic damage is how people regenerate mana in dungeons. So no longer can you just fire your bonzo staff and firing it hit after hit after hit. Because mana regen got a huge nerf. 90% is how much that nerf is, so mana regen's 90% slower, which is basically 100%, and that means that it's really slow now. Now, people may ask, hey, why did they do that? It's because they wanted to make it a little bit more strategic in dungeons, so you don't just spam a single ability. Because now, the way you regen mana, mainly, is by using your hit attack, like your main attack, where you just normally click and don't use the ability. That amount that people gain per hit it's scalable. So every hit on an enemy mob gives back mana plus 1% of your total mana. So I did some calculations just so you how much that is for reference. If you have 1,000 total mana, you will have 55 mana gain per hit. If you have 2,000 total mana, you will have 105 mana per hit. If you have 3,000 total mana, you will have 155 mana per hit. Those are basically all of the changes specifically to magic damage. We want to now just look at the Dreadlord's sword. Many people, they just skip over the Dreadlord sword. I mean, it's a pretty bad sword, but as a mage weapon, it's really good. So this one obviously is 5-starred and epic. The normal version is just rare. Now, this one has a gear score of 418, which is high for even for epic. It has 78 damage, 107 strength, not bad, 50 crit damage, some attack speed, and a lot of intelligence. Now it has 200, or it has a lot base intelligence, and that's part of the reason why this is such a good sword. Now, while in dungeons, because this is the only place you would really use it, it actually does 150 damage, has 200 strength, plus 100 crit damage, plus 4.5 bonus attack speed, and plus 405 intelligence. Now, that doesn't necessarily compare too well to the bonzo staff. The bonzo staff has 200 more intelligence while in dungeons, and it has more damage but less strength. However, this one has strength and crit damage. And now that I've shown you the general changes to magic damage and specifically the Dreadlord sword, I'm going to talk about just why the Dreadlord sword is a really, really, really good late game weapon, and even maybe mid game weapon for mages and dungeons. So for this video, I've broken down reasons why Dreadlord Sword is good into 3 main reasons. And they're both equally as important, and they both all make the Dreadlord Sword as good as it is. The first reason, infinite firepower. Now for this part, we're going to need to do a little bit of math, but it works out in the end. So even with just an epic sheep, I have an epic sheep equipped right now. This sword and its ability, Dreadlord, will cost a mere 35 mana, because of the abilities of the sheep. On average, in a dungeon, I will have about 2.7k mana. In this clip, I have a little bit less, but it's still about the same. And that is 140 mana per hit, which is quite a bit considering that you fire 3 to 4 times per second, and let's just say you miss some and you only hit 2, so you're hitting 2 per second. That's 2 times 140 mana per second. So 280 mana per second, and assuming you fire 5 projectiles per second, for the bonzo staff, 5 projectiles per second is 500 mana per second. 500 mana per second is more than the 280 mana per second that you're regenning. So you are losing about 165 mana per second. And if you have a total mana of 2,700, that means that you have 16 seconds of consistent fire time before you have to just click and not use your ability, which I don't really like. I like to be able to just hit after hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. Meanwhile, the Dreadlord sword, when in dungeons, I'll have a mana cost of 35. So 35 times 5 minus 2 times 140 equals negative 105. And the negative means that you're actually gaining mana. Now, this isn't exactly like perfect math because sometimes you'll hit more of the times and sometimes you'll hit less. But if you get really good at aiming, you will never have to stop being able to use the ability. So that's the first reason. It has infinite firepower. The second reason is that the heroic Dreadlord sword, or any Dreadlord sword, it does AoE damage now. And the bonzo staff, it does kind of AoE damage. Sometimes you'll hit 2 or 3. But the Dreadlord sword does like real AoE damage. And the thing about AoE damage, the more enemies there are, the more damage you do. And there's lots of enemies in dungeons, citation needed. So you do 1 more set of damage per mob. For a weapon that does 10k damage, 5 mobs equals 50k damage, which is way more than 10k damage. TLDR, AoE is overpowered. And the third point that I'm going to make about why the Dreadlord sword is such a good weapon for dungeons is the overall damage. If you'll look, I'm out of dungeons right now. When out of dungeons, 2,000 damage, and the bonzo staff is 1,000 damage. It completely outclasses it. I mean, why would you do 100 mana for 1,000 damage when you could do 40 mana for 2.5k damage? Now, when you're in a dungeon, they're both around 10k, at least if you have 2.6k mana, they're both around 10k, but still, 40 mana for 10k damage is much, much, much better than 100 mana for 10k damage. And this one can fire faster too. There's literally nothing about the bonzo staff that's better than the heroic Dreadlord sword. I just can't find a single thing. It's just a better weapon. Now, if you're actually going to want it to do more damage in the first place than the bonzo staff, you're going to need a pretty good one. As you can see, this other one that I have has a gear score of 283. Meanwhile, this epic one has a gear score of 418. So it's definitely not as good as this maxed one that I have. And it does like a little, it does like 200 damage less, but when you scale it up, it's more like 3,000 damage less. So you're really going to want to get a good one. And the great thing about this is since the bad ones are really bad, the good ones only cost around 1,000,000 coins. So I on bin right now, you could probably get one that has a similar gear score for like 900k. For like the 2 people that do see this video, if someone else makes a video about this, and I'm sure they will because like Skyblock is content deprived, buy these and then their price is gonna go soaring. I swear to God, it's gonna happen. Okay, so with that out of the way, I'm going to next to do a comparison between the bonzo staff and the heroic Dreadlord sword. Now, I'm going to go into a dungeons game, and the first dungeons, I'm going to play with the bonzo staff, and then the second dungeons run, I'm going to play with the Dreadlord sword. And they're both going to be F1 runs, just so like I can talk a lot and stand still and I won't die super quickly. But you're going to see just how much better this Dreadlord sword is than the bonzo staff. So for this one, I'm going to be using the bonzo staff. As you can see, I'm already almost all out of mana, even though I've been block hitting. Now here's me trying to solo a room. Almost 3 hits in, and I don't have any mana, and now I'm getting cornered. So I'm doing about 10k damage with the white beam attack, and 27k damage with the balloon. Okay, here's a different type of fight, the Watcher fight. Watcher fight's a bit different because he spawns small amount of enemies, but they're all like really tanky. So let's see how well this bonzo staff holds up to the Watcher and how quickly we can defeat it. Alright, let's start firing at it. And I am block hitting right now. Oh, and it looks like I'm already out. Alright, here's me with the Dreadlord sword. Alright, so we just kind of shredded that first room. It looks like the click ability of this one does just about 50,000 damage, which is 5 times more. 5 times more damage with just normal clicky ability. And the other one, let's see. So let's say I hit about 3 enemies on each attack, just 50k damage as well. So 50k damage for the normal click and 50k damage for the ability versus 10k damage for the normal click and 27k for the ability. perfect example of the infinite firepower. This Angry Archaeologist, it's super tanky. And I am just block hitting. And my mana, oh, it just died. But my mana stayed at full the entire time. Next, I want to show you just how good the Dreadlord sword is for the Watcher fight. So you know how it does AoE? Now, what if you stand up here and all of the mobs just come down and like go at your feet and they just stand there while you hit them? I'll just wait for them to bunch up. Like look, some of them are coming over to me. Alright, I'll just fire at this one normally for now. Alright, look. Here's three. Now I can just do this, and they all get hit for like the 50k damage that this thing does. If you would like to watch one of my other videos, click here. If you would like to subscribe, click there. And with that out of the way, I have nothing more to say.